part of the incentive I have is because I've been asked personally to provide a fiscal agency to handle our interaction here in the United States, the Housing Urban Development Department, that I believe will also provide a guidance for us here. So in this capacity, I'm simply functioning as a strategic alliance coordinator. I'm happy to assist in coordinating this for the rest of the year and thereafter. So I'll in turn ask each of you to raise your hand and or do a brief introduction of yourself if you so choose. Perhaps we could start with you, Richard Nelson, because it does seem, in fact, that SolaRoof and your technologies is at the heart of a continuing process that's been going on for many years. So, Richard Nelson, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Yes, it's very exciting. And I think we can look forward to action on our plans, long-held plans, very strong and mature team, I think capable of responding to a global emergency, which we are in the midst of. And we know also that concurrently with climate emergency and pandemic emergency, we are going to continue to have escalating other crises on top of those crises. So the concern ultimately is, that these become overwhelming. So yeah, our purpose is to bring a technology, an innovation, and what it is focused on a method for growing food in a controlled environment. So when we simplify and when we have innovations that reduce the energy cost, then this becomes accessible for everyone. We're focused right now on the food, not so much the human habitat, which is up on the screen right now. If you want to go down the page there, I think we'll see some other some illustrations. But the purpose will be to create accessible environments for growing food, and here's the Creative Commons mentioned there. That's important. So we need to do this by way of well, this would be the smallest version for the backyard, and then there's additionally larger structures as we look at the community level. So small for communities, farmers, farmers that are family farmers, and then of course the industrial scale type of projects as well, because we do have the urban requirement for food for billions of people, really, billions of people who have insecure food. Let's stay at that one for a minute. So this is actually about the size for a community project. And as you see, it's a dome-like structure. It's built in metal and with metal structural system. This one is showing 2 levels. It could actually be fitted for 3 levels at this size. It could be a 3-level building. And what we do is on the ground level, we have the fish production. So this isn't aquaponics, which means fish plus plants. So the fish are below and the plants are above. And it is quite that simple. And within the environment interior, we have a climate control processes which regulate the temperature, the humidity, and can protect the crop in any climate, whether it's very cold or very hot. And we've had projects in tropical heat of Malaysia and also to the north, like Norway. So the technology has been under development for 40 years. So it is mature technology, fortunately, right? We're not at the beginning of this. We're at a point where we can launch projects. So the key is to launch simultaneously several of this scale, which we call Octa3. It is an octagonal dome, and it has 3 levels typically, and that's what we call Octa 3. So it is a very nice scale for community projects, especially for schools. And as was being discussed here, that most often we all recognize that there's an educational component, which is, you could say, also a teaching or learning, a learning component, which goes with innovation, and that schools are a wonderful environment and young people are open to the future, looking to build a future. So here we have an example, and you know, it's certainly one among many of innovations that are ready to build a much better future than what we have seen. And it's a new relationship with food, and also a new relationship with nature, one which is not destructive, one which is very harmonious. So maybe if that's an outline. Yeah, the
Richard,
labeling.
just a quick question. What will be the budget, say, for 110 of these Octa 6 structure? That's one question. And the follow-up question is that if you want to, you know, in a constrained areas, say in a university campus, if you want to go vertically up, what will be the maximum utilization of space we can do, the required space to build this 110 you know, home structure?
Yeah, certainly. So these are tent-like structures, and they are a breakthrough in the capital cost. The one that we were just looking at, the label down below said Octa 6, but it was not the Octa 6, okay? It was the Octa 3 that we were looking at, as I mentioned. So just in terms of the scale, you know, looking at that scale, as you could see, it had 2 levels, but it could fit 3 levels. The Octa 6 has 6 levels, so it's
6 levels, okay.
Considerably bigger project. And you know, because it's the square, it's the volume is the what is it, the cube, not the square, but the cube, right, of the structure. Because as it gets big, right, it gets a lot more area, a lot more productivity inside. So that unit has about 100 square meters, we'd say 1,000 square feet of production, and we can get that structure, I would say, delivered anywhere in the world for about $25,000. It has 1,000 square feet, and it's able to produce food, and it is climate controlled, right? It's not just the structure, but it is the working systems that do the climate control. It is a solar design. In other words, it captures heat energy. It stores the heat energy it uses in cold climate. You have that heat available at night. And then in the hot climate, it can dissipate the heat. So we can regulate the climate and the humidity in any place in the world, right? And we can do that effectively off grid, because the energy requirement of those processes are so low. And when we're growing all that, you know, biomass and food, right? It's food. Well, I say there's 4 types, right? It's food, feed for other animals. It's called human beings animals, but you know what I mean. We're in the animal kingdom as far as our biology goes. So we have food for people, feed for animals, fiber, and fuel crops. Those are the 4 principal categories that we can grow. So you know, crops. We can use the root, the tuber, the stem, the leaf, the blossom, the fruit, everything, right? we have the 5 kingdoms also, 5 kingdoms of life, right? Which is that we will have algae, we'll have the plants, we'll have animals, we'll have the fungi with mushrooms, which is a different kingdom of life as well, and of course the bacteria. The bacteria and the fungi are the family of the kingdom of life that recycle, right? They recycle. The plant kingdom, of course, is producing our oxygen, consuming carbon dioxide, as do the algae. Yes, the algae. But the algae kingdoms specialize in nitrogen fixation. The algae are able to break the nitrogen bond. The plant do not do that. Bacteria close to roots of plants, like the legume, will do that, creating nitrogen, creating creating the proteins, right? All the RNA, DNA, the amino acids, which form those materials, which are the code of life, right? The intelligence of life in the cell. And so we need the algae, because with the algae, we do not need fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers. At this time, for the entire global production of food, 70% of our food at least is dependent, totally dependent on our petrochemical resources. And those will be depleted beyond the cost, that they will become inaccessible in cost even within 10 to 20 years. So therefore, because we have this focus on, as you said also, you have GMO, you have the corruption of our food system by experimental manipulations, which no one knows the consequences of doing these things in terms of the circle of life, and because once we start to tamper with the code of life, these code changes, right, are propagated into life. From there, it becomes a contamination, and it's out of control. So we have all of these crises. Right? So why are people sick? We have two cases. We have a billion people at least, probably another couple billion, a billion who do not have enough food, and then another billion who have food that is deficient, and it's GMO food. And these are the communities of the world that are on aid programs, really, and if not for the advanced, so-called advanced countries, providing them this food, right, they would also be in the category of those who don't have enough food. Then you have another, 3 or 4 billion people who have enough food, but the problem is the food is killing them.
Exactly.
The food they're getting is killing them, right? So we have all kinds of dysfunction now. You can see it in the world. We have hormonal dysfunction. We have populations of life, like the aquatic life and the frogs and many of those, who are not multiplying because they've been sterile, and human beings are becoming sterile, and our hormonal function is disrupted. So it means all of the growth of children and their development and their brain development is disrupted because there's not enough nutrients in our food. So you cannot simply give people flour and expect that they have a life. It's like raising a child on sugar, and we're just about sugar, It's calories, but it's actually poison to our system. Those calories are addictive poisons that we've allowed to come into our food system. And the same thing with flour, all of our processed food, everything from grain. Now, people don't understand typically because they don't understand food very well, but we could say something to know, is that all of our grain are amino acid deficient. We die if we just eat grain, for sure, right? And yet people are put on a flour diet because it's all they have, and in the famine. And yes, they will in any case die when that's what we can do. So we must be able to bring real food to people. And what we know now, and we learned this, I was talking with the colonel earlier this morning, we're talking about the space program and how if we send astronauts to the moon or Mars, and we cannot do the resupply, we can't just constantly push consumable food, right? That they will consume and then it's waste, and that's it. They have to keep supplying. Well, this kind of this is not life support, right? This is not true life support, because sooner or later our ability to do this is exhausted. We're exhausting the whole system when we operate this way. So we have, of course, to do the wheel of life. That's why you call it wheel of life farm. Yes, I love it. So in the wheel of life farm, Well, we need the sunlight. So we have a transparent structure. You know, for people to live, yes, they can live in domes, they can live in homes. We can have all kinds of wonderful construction with people just on this call that know about construction of all kind of advanced, and, you know, we can use the hemp plant. We can build our homes from bamboo structurally. We can do all kinds of regenerative building systems. I also believe that we need to wisely use metals, you know, metals in our construction. So that includes steel and aluminum. There are very good reasons for that. We can go into that. And, you know, in many ways, these kind of products, they will uplift everyone. Just as we need to build an aircraft out of aluminum to fly and to go so high and to do so much, so our homes too have to become 21st century and advanced, but we can still, you know, incorporate all of these living systems and much of those materials that come from life itself. Well, we need to have this end the battle, you know, where technology is killing. So we look at technology and agriculture as like the plow. You know, the plow is battling with nature. We don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to do it. I can tell you, without a plow and without any toxin, without any inputs of artificial fertilizers or you know, pesticide, herbicide, anything to fight with nature, that we can grow 20 to 40 pounds of food per square foot per year. That's the stems and the plant and the flowers and the fruits and all of this beautiful food that we can eat. And that is our Paleolithic diet, right? Before grain, before our economy of a warfare economy that we've seen since civilization, right? Which was always focused on grain. So again, there's a story. Why is it focused on grain? And what's the story behind that? I don't know. We probably don't have time this session. And I've spoken long enough now. I know that. I'm sorry. I get going and someone has to say, Richard, okay.
Well,
Richard,
fascinated.
one more input, Richard, that we want to incorporate and save honeybees, you know, which is the population is declining. So we want to make sure that we provide a good home to all the honeybees by integrating them into our structure here in this Wheel of Life farm.
Welcome them right inside the structure, you know.
Exactly.
Because they're not harmful. You know?
Right.
Well, if
now,
I may,
the other question I have is this. So we conclude this. People are used to living in, you know, high rises, tallest buildings, you know, and Dubai is building a lot of them, and you know, people are used to, you know, going up into the sky and live up there, you know, in the higher ends. So I was just thinking that in order to say make 1,000 square feet sort of homes in these, you know, vertically skyscrapers, they call it, and we use say Kane's, you know, buildings. I mean the bricks, etc., which is making from plastic and waste, and then that brick actually supports the whole building, and around it we actually have a transparent, you know, model which you have developed. So we need to look into this, that in a constrained area, in a popular situation, like they say, okay, we would like to live in a skyscraper. So well, can we say build?
Let me comment on that, because again, that is a kind of an assumption that we have, and it's in our educational system, and it's in our conditioning, that there's not enough space in this world, that there's not room for everyone. And I can tell you, there's plenty of room for everyone. We are not overpopulated in this world, okay? What we have is a way in which we're living, which is impoverishing everyone. So, and part of that is that when you look out around us, what have we done to our environment? We've destroyed it. I live in Canada. There's huge areas, you know, of just empty land. And what have we done? We've deforested all of that land, not once, many times. We've cut down. We cut it down.
Mhm.
And what is growing back is not the wildness. It's not the diversity.
Mhm.
It's not, we haven't nurtured it back into health. Yeah. We have killed and then, purposefully, I would say in many ways, kept that system from recovering. Certainly we have not been helping it. So we have also the situation in the Amazon. It's the same thing. Okay, so you have the sword and the axe and the plow. They are all destructive, and their purpose is to diminish life. Diminish life. When you diminish all the life around you, suddenly you find you're poor. That's how we get poor.
Exactly.
So now we live together in our poverty, and out there is a wasteland. It's a wasteland of our creation.
If I may, Mafadal, I'd like to now introduce Mr. Zhang. Aubrey, if you're there, I put on the screen your PyraPOD, but in the comments, you mentioned that we need to change our way of life. So could you please introduce yourself, Aubrey? And thank you so very much.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes?
Good, because this is actually my second time using Zoom, so I'm not quite familiar with this because I hate meeting. I was from China. We got a lot of meetings. I like to do things. So when I learned about SolaRoof, and then that I want to do it, right? I want to don't talk about it, right? I want to use it. We have been waiting for so long for this. This is so genius. And we're learning from the nature, right? We have the real version right above our head, the atmosphere. So anyway, so this time when I approached Richard, I said, could we make the smallest version, smallest form of SolaRoof. So quickly, just within a few minutes, we came up with the idea, PyraPOD, right? So basically, it's smaller than octagon, with basically 4 sides. Basically it's a pyramid, right? But as there's some curvature. So this website actually was built, only a week ago. Just everything's fast. So once I know that what we need to do, then I want to act fast, right? So this is the website. I put up, basically add a lot of stuff, videos. Right now I'm doing both things. One, they help with the developing the PyraPOD, the first prototype. On the same time, I'm going to convert I have a existing conventional greenhouse. I'm going to convert it into the SolaRoof based greenhouse. So anyway, so like to hear that more people get interested in this, and I think this is the only thing we need to focus on. Once we change the way we build structure, and then we're going to change everything. So this is I call the radical change. Otherwise, nothing will happen because it's so easy. People stay with their a comfortable zone, rather status quo, right? So and it's and everything forces us to do this change. Otherwise, a lot of things will happen and we cannot handle it. So anyway, so glad to join this. Thank Richard for inviting me, and I'll keep updating. Basically, I'm the the doer, right? I don't want to talk too much. I want to do it, right? If it's this is real, use right away. I don't want to wait for others. Want to buy from other manufacturer, right? I'm going to use it myself. DIY. So I'm glad that Richard is willing to help me to do this and all other things. So I'm so happy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Aubrey, can you identify 2 universities, one in British Columbia and one in China? where we can launch
Oh.
our Gemba program and, start building this community?
Oh yeah, well, for sure. It's by the way, I just tell you that the China already, China is famous for for copycat, right? They copy everything,
Right.
right?
I mean,
So
that's good.
actually, I know a person in China. He copied everything that Richard Nelson is doing. Exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
And but just they use they call the bird's nest, another structure, right? But it's just the technology is the same. They copied, I think, starting from 2011, like, if I remember correctly, But for some reason, still not spreading everywhere, Because what? They didn't do the proper way,
Exactly.
right? We have the inventor here, and he's been doing this for 40 years, right? And I can understand that. I want to do the same. Oh, I can do it myself, right? But no, this is it's a collective, collective thing. We got to do it together. If it's truly, good for humanity, we're gonna do it together.
So, Aubrey, we are actually eliminating that habit of copying, which people, go through a lot of efforts of copying it and not doing it well. We are simply providing them, so that they don't worry about copying. Everything is available. You just duplicate and, make sure that the, farms of China becomes GMO free, and everybody starts enjoying a good quality life.
Mufafo, there were a couple of people that had their hands raised. Luis Cruz Diaz was first. So, Luis, could you unmute yourself, please? And then Michael Rindler.
Yes, definitely. And Aubrey, that project, basically, we have 3 engineer graduates, and which are working right now in NASA Space Center, in different universities in California, Berkeley, for example, where this project could be developed, as Mandala has indicated, as a training and teaching program. So yes, definitely Puerto Rico has various universities that can offer that space. With Richard's technology and Aubrey, basically we can develop a lot of those projects around Puerto Rico.
I have been building these projects around the world for 40 years. I started in the 80s. I built my own custom research center in 84, and it was approved. It went under authorities, architects, engineers, constructed, operated. We built 6,000 square feet at the end of the 80s at McGill University on the campus, no problem. We built 12,000 square feet in the mid-90s out in Alberta. Right now there's 15,000 square feet by the city of Oslo in Norway. There's 8,000 square feet in the UK. I've left a trail of projects around the world, and there is one project in USA, one, okay, out of 40 years. And that's in Fairfield, Iowa, about 4,000 square feet at a university campus, MUM, it's a private university. So permits are, yes, each time it's an effort, but these are under a category, let's say, of agricultural structure, greenhouse. These were all of these were greenhouse projects, not habitat. They weren't commercial buildings or so. But fabric buildings are well established in the commercial industry. All the way from stadiums to airports to smaller structures and fabric components of structures. So that's what we're using, right? We're using very much a conventional structural know-how. We have corporations, on the team with their materials technology know-how, Aluminum, you know, with Norsk Hydro, fully committed. So yes, it's a constant, you know, we're participating in the cutting edge of the technology of these kinds of building. You know, we've worked with companies like Bird Air and ChemFab. These are the people that built all the stadium roofs in the USA, fabric roofs, and the Denver airport, places like this, the Hajj terminal in Saudi Arabia. You know, it's all, it's a new area of technology, certainly fabric and materials technology. And I focus particularly on the transparent type of construction. And all of these companies from Bird Air owns Corning that do the glass fabrics and the coatings that go on them to create the transparency. All of these are technically done and capable and ready. You know, we can build tomorrow.
Well, one thing I do want to bring to the attention of everyone here is that we have a specific timeline, and that's for between now and the end of the year, as I understand it, to actually create a functioning unit. And one reason I'm so glad that Aubrey is here is that I understand he's already made the investment of time, energy, and focus on doing that. So, Mafaro, what I hope we can do is find a way to bridge this gap. So we'll have a demonstration of an actual product that we can then, in fact, look to provide homes for the homeless and homes for the needy worldwide.
Because we are ready. And I love what you were saying, you know, we have to get people, groups of people, communities. We have to get communities even step change, right? That's, Michael's got to handle all of that, you know, and that's the great facilitating the agile, the presentation, the communication, and reaching the decision makers with data, you know, that has been analyzed, that makes sense, that's convincing, not just convincing, it's compelling, you know, which is again, M&M is saying, we're going to make money, we're going to make more money than anybody else. And at this point, we have to, you know, deploy our resources in a very effective way, economically effective as well as socially and environmentally. So how do you make the step change? That comes down to what it is. And what it is, it takes decades. It takes decades of champions for the new process to be implemented. Or again, as the key word, adopted. Adopted, that's all. And why do people adopt something? Oftentimes because they're in a corner. They don't have any choice by that point. They have to make a change. So if it's starvation or try something new, you try, you say, well, what's working failed? And you say, okay, we'll try something new. The fortunate case is that all of us have been working for decades to have exactly the right stuff, and it's ready. It's actually ready. We're not beginning to think about this. We have been thinking about it for decades. We have been doing it for decades, right? So now we're able to come forward as a team and we say, well, you need a different financial to what you're doing. So M&M, you have it, you're working it. And I can see what you're doing and understand, I'm getting used to it, you know, it takes a little time. We need community, Joan, you're involved in community, how do communities operate and so on and so on. Colonel, you're in the hotspot of crisis. You have to reply and respond to crisis ahead of other communities who are not really in crisis. You could say LA is in crisis in some ways. Yeah, almost every American city is in crisis. But compare that to Africa, where in the Sahel, people are starving. No, it's not that bad, right? We have all of us, our own situation. So in the midst of this confusion and this chaos, even political chaos, which we see craziness around the world, well, we have to be effective, right? Because we know what's coming, and we're caring about the people. We're caring about communities. We care if people eat, you know, if they have food, or their children are going to have food, or our own families.
Yeah,
because this can
Puerto Rico's political crisis and situation is just what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it'll affect our own home and our own families, like COVID, right? Your brother, your mother, everyone or people around you can get hit. So the same thing happens with the kind of famine collapse, food system collapse, if it happens, when it happens. What we need to do is take the calm before the storm, which is now, right? Before we get overwhelmed, and we implement the step change. So we go to the people who are most agile, and we talk with them with agile communication and analysis that Michael can present. We have a financial system, we have a community system. We are aware of all of the implications of transparency and being honest in a world which is full of people wondering, is it real, is it fake? Just one more complete the idea, okay, Andrew, is the technology to do this has fundamental changes. So you have people like myself that are bringing forward, and we're not just starting, we know what we can do, just like you guys know what you can do. I know what I can do with buildings, and I know that all the materials, and I've been practicing it for years. So thank God for that, right? That now we can just implement it, and it won't be a discovery process. No, I did that 30 years ago, the discovery, you know, and worked on it in different cultures and different places in the world. So yeah, now what we need is experimental demonstration of the innovation. Everyone's going to call it experimental. They don't care I've been working on it for 40 years. They've never seen it before. They're going to call it an experiment.
Yes,
So,
I'm
and
the
what Lloyd says,
example.
we have to.
I was a doubting Thomas. You know what I
Lloyd
mean?
said,
I was a
said the right
doubting
thing
Thomas,
too.
even me.
Yeah,
But now I'm not.
yeah. Aubrey, we will do this, Lloyd said, privately at first. Yes, because experiments are always first movers. Step change comes from people who take the chance, and they take the chance with their own money. You know, they'll actually do it for themselves, like Aubrey's doing. And I'm sure, Colonel, you will do with friends and family, because you can put this up and you put it up as is for yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
Benefit,
so that's a first step.
If it's something good, right? You want to use it yourself, right? And then you can tell others, you know, I've tasted, right?
Before we try to correct other people and tell them what to do, why don't we do it first?
Yeah.
Is your solution like the main solution, Richard, or is it a part of the solution which we're trying to integrate, or we're focusing on it as the main thing?
Could I like to think of it as a catalyst, you know, I like to think of it as part of the whole solution. And yeah, that's the best way to go, always, you know, we need everyone.
I'd like to follow up on what Richard says, because that's absolutely the key thing, is that Richard's solution is the centerpiece. It's the catalyst. I think he used the right word. But I've been trying to put forward is actually through my conversations with whether it's with Andrew or with yourself, Andre, or with Fadl, it's the education, it's the understanding, it's the training, it's the people's understanding of how to do this on their own. So that education part that's why we want to turn these buildings into classrooms. That's why we want to put these on universities or even high schools or public schools. We want them out, visible, and in the community, so that the kids especially can learn how to do this and do it on their own. So that we don't have to, in the future, hopefully intervene anymore. And it's not a constant battle, because this is just going to be the way of life of the future. Right. As I say, as I actually talked to Joan about this before, with her CSV Gardens, I said, we need to come to a point where, just like somebody can buy a house, go to the bank and get a mortgage and just purchase a house. We need to be able to walk into a bank and say, I'm going to build a solar roof. Can you give me the financing? And the banker will go, sure, we can check those boxes. It has to be that easy at some point. So that kind of, we have to look into the future, see where we want to be. and aim for that.
Well, it may
And
be.
so
Well,
the idea is that SolaRoof is this catalyst to get the integrated projects together for the purposes of the, I think, of the education.
right. So, Mafadal, I think that's really why I'm so excited to be working with you, because all of these differing cycles are working together. But if you are committed to documenting between now and the end of the year, the fact that we can come out of this with a home for the homeless, or a home for the needy, or a home for a solution as a model, the idea is that we can replicate this globally